Aboard the USS Hornet, echoes of the past refuse to be silenced. Over 300 lives lost in tragic circumstances, their stories etched into the steel hull of this mighty vessel. For decades, unexplained sounds have echoed through its corridors. Shadowy figures have been spotted in deserted rooms, and visitors have left shaken by what they experienced. The question remains, what truly haunts this ship? Tonight, we'll explore 3 chilling encounters reported aboard this legendary warship. A haunting scream that sent shivers down a group's spine, mysterious activity in the dead of night, and a sailor's ghost captured on video. Stay with us. What we're about to uncover will leave you questioning the line between reality and the unknown. The USS Hornet is more than a warship. It's a symbol of American resilience. During World War II, it stood at the forefront of critical battles, from the Pacific campaigns to the Philippines. Later, it returned to serve in Vietnam and played a vital role in recovering the Apollo astronauts, including the crew of the historic moon landing in 1969. But alongside its storied legacy lies a shadow. Over 300 lives were lost aboard this ship, not only in the chaos of war, but through tragic accidents and suicides. These walls hold their stories, their voices, their final moments. For decades, reports of unexplainable events have emerged. Phantom footsteps, whispers in empty rooms, and figures that vanish into thin air. The USS Hornet has become one of the most haunted vessels in history, its decks echoing with the weight of lives lost. Before we explore these chilling encounters, subscribe to uncover more stories of real-life horror and the unknown. Now, let us step aboard the USS Hornet and face its lingering shadows. In the stillness of the night, deep within the USS Hornet, a group of Girl Scouts would face an experience they would never forget. The year was 1995, and the troop had gathered for an overnight stay aboard the legendary warship, now serving as a museum in Alameda, California. Among them was a young woman who, years later, would recount the events that unfolded. She and her friend had left their sleeping quarters to use the restroom. As they passed the ship's galley, a chilling sound broke the silence, a man's desperate scream for help. It echoed through the steel halls, sending shivers down their spines. They froze, unable to move, before quickly rushing back to their berthing area, hoping it was nothing more than a trick of their imagination. Later that night, as the group settled into their quarters, the unease lingered. But what happened next defied explanation. Out of the corner of their eyes, they noticed movement. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the room, a man dressed in khakis, standing silently near the door. The girls screamed in terror, their voices piercing the quiet night. In a desperate attempt to fend off the intruder, they threw a deck of cards at him. But the cards didn't hit their mark. They passed right through him, scattering across the floor as if the man wasn't even there. And just as quickly as he appeared, he was gone, leaving the girls trembling and too afraid to sleep. Was it the restless spirit of a sailor still haunting the ship's decks, or merely the overactive imaginations of frightened children? The answer remains unknown. This isn't the only unsettling tale from the USS Hornet. Let's move to another encounter, this time from a sailor who worked aboard the ship, and what he experienced in the dead of night. Dan Brisker was a machinist's mate aboard the USS Hornet during the 1960s, a time when the ship was still an active part of the U.S. Navy. His duties often required him to work alone in the ship's fire room, a place where the air was thick with heat, noise, and shadows. Deep within the ship, surrounded by the hum of machinery, Brisker often felt isolated. But one night, that isolation turned into something far more unsettling. Imagine this. You're working alone on the graveyard shift in a dimly lit fire room. The pipes groan, the machinery vibrates, and the silence between the sounds feels heavier than the noise itself. Suddenly you hear something out of place, the distinct sound of tools being used nearby. For Brisker, that night was no different. As he sat eating a quick snack, the unmistakable scrape of a tool echoed through the room. Curious and slightly uneasy, Brisker decided to investigate. The sound had come from a nearby firebox, an area that should have been empty at that hour. As he approached, the scraping noise grew louder, as though someone were hard at work inside. But when he reached the firebox, the sound abruptly stopped. Brisker hesitated for a moment before peering inside. The firebox was empty, except for one thing. On the floor lay a paint scraper, as though it had been dropped moments earlier. Brisker looked around, his heart pounding, but there was no one else in the room. He was alone, or so it seemed. For years, Brisker couldn't explain what happened that night. Was it the spirit of a sailor, still tending to his duties, or simply a coincidence? The question remained unanswered, but the unease of that moment stayed with him long after he left the Hornet. And now, we turn to the most compelling encounter of all, a family's ghostly discovery, caught on camera during their private tour of the ship. One quiet afternoon, a family decided to take a private tour of the USS Hornet. Armed with a video camera, they documented every corner of the legendary warship, capturing their exploration to preserve the memories of their visit. What they didn't realize was that their footage would hold something far more chilling than they ever expected. As they reviewed their recording later that evening, something unusual caught their attention. Small, faint flashes of light in the corner of the frame. Initially, they dismissed it as a trick of the camera or a reflection from the ship's metallic surfaces. But curiosity got the better of them, and they began examining the footage frame by frame. That's when they saw it. In the flickering light, the faint outline of a figure began to emerge. It was a man, dressed in a white shirt, standing near the edge of the corridor. But there was something unmistakably out of place. In the sleeve of his shirt was a rolled pack of cigarettes, a style iconic among sailors of decades past. He stood motionless, watching, before fading into the shadows. The family was left shaken. They had been alone during their tour. No one else had been in that part of the ship. Yet, the apparition was clear and undeniable, captured forever in their recording. Was this a glitch in their camera, an illusion caused by the ship's dim lighting, or something far more unexplainable? Paranormal enthusiasts who have seen the footage argue that this could be one of the clearest examples of the USS Hornet's ghostly inhabitants. Proof of life beyond the grave, or just a coincidence? The USS Hornet continues to spark debate, and for those who visit it, its mysteries remain unforgettable. But these aren't the only stories of the Hornet. Its corridors echo with countless tales, each as eerie and compelling as the last. What do you think? Could the spirits of the past still walk the decks of this haunted ship? The USS Hornet is not just a monument to history. It is a vessel that carries the weight of sacrifice, tragedy, and unresolved sorrow. Over 300 lives were lost aboard this ship, some in the chaos of battle, others through accidents, and many more to the silent despair of suicide. These corridors have witnessed pain and loss that words alone cannot capture. With such a heavy past, it's no wonder that the USS Hornet has become synonymous with hauntings. Could it be that the spirits of those who perished here still linger, their stories unfinished, seeking resolution in the only place they ever knew? These stories of ghostly screams, unexplained movements, and fleeting apparitions may seem extraordinary. But whether you believe in ghosts or not, they leave us with one undeniable question. What is the power of the human spirit, and can it truly transcend the boundaries of life and death? For those who have walked the Hornet's decks, the answer feels closer than ever. The echoes of its past are impossible to ignore. From the Girl Scout's chilling encounter with a ghostly figure, to the machinist hearing unexplained noises in the fire room, and finally, to the family capturing a spectral sailor on video, the USS Hornet has proven to be a true hotspot for paranormal activity. Each story adds another layer to the ship's haunting reputation. Which of these stories sent chills down your spine? Was it the screams in the galley, the abandoned paint scraper, or the ghostly figure caught on camera? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if haunted warships fascinate you, don't miss our video on the most haunted battleship in history. It's a tale you won't want to watch alone. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the USS Hornet's ghostly past. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true horror stories and paranormal explorations. Until next time, we'll see you in the next chilling tale.